Hey, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to the October 20th, 2020 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. And this morning, we're blessed to have Pastor Adam Godbold from Faith Methodist Church to lead us in our invocation. And we have an officer from the Cobb Police Department lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. So those who are willing and able, please stand.
Good morning. My favorite band once said that what we lack in musical talent we make up for in bravado, and hopefully it's not too much bravado for me to tell you that I pastor Faith Methodist Church we meet in a bowling alley, and we would love for you to check us out this Sunday. We've got our annual Check Us Out Sunday coming up this week, and we'd love to have you worship with us. Hopefully that was not too much liberty. I want to read just a few verses from Proverbs chapter 3. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom, the one who gets understanding. For the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her ways are peace. She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called blessed. For the Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding he established the heavens. By his knowledge the deeps broke open, and the clouds dropped down the dew. Let's pray. Father in heaven, you are all wise, and you are all loving. And so we thank you for the opportunity to, in our finite ways, reflect your wisdom and reflect your love. And we pray for your wisdom as the temperatures drop and the leaves do the same. We thank you that you are always faithful to your creation. You are always good to it. Lord, we pray for wisdom for our leaders. We pray for your wisdom to be theirs. And Lord, we pray that you would lead and guide all of the events of this hour. For those who have decisions to make and the burden upon them of making those decisions, we pray that you would guide, that you would give wisdom. And Lord, we pray for your blessing on each person that's in this room and for our county. Lord, we thank you for Cobb County, for the chance to live here, for the chance to see the beauty of the world that you've made as we see it here in this county. And Lord, we pray for your blessings on us. And we pray all this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, Pastor, thank you very much. Yes. I was hoping the pastor was going to mention the part in Proverbs about gray hair reflecting wisdom, but maybe that's for another day. I believe we have a... I couldn't look at you, Commissioner. I couldn't look at you either. Would the county attorney like to read the statement addressing virtual meetings?
Chairman, thank you. We're back in, all the commissioners are back in the regular meeting room today, and I just wanted for clarification regarding our rules. We still have some people virtual, some of the staff are, and some of the participants can be virtual as well. This meeting is live at 100 Cherokee Street. We have applicants and the public who are able to be here or in attendance. All of the Board of Commissioners and some of the staff are attending. All the Board of Commissioners are here live. Some of the staff are attending virtually, and arrangements have been made for in-person and virtual participation regarding the applicants and those in opposition. To that end, I suggest that during this unprecedented circumstances during COVID-19 pandemic, that you make the following changes to your zoning meeting rules for this October meeting, as I would suggest, as well as for the November and December meetings as well. You can do it in one motion here. First, that the BOC staff and citizens be allowed to participate virtually and in person. Second, that the BOC members can vote by voice or by hand gesture, since you don't have the electronic signal since you're distance here. Third, the time allotted for the applicants and those opposed to the applications be 10 minutes for each side. if the opposition presents for longer than 10 minutes, the equivalent number of minutes, more than the original 10 minutes, be provided to the applicant. Persons wishing to be counted as either in favor or in opposition to the application will be recognized, and the number of persons provided by the board, either virtually by that system or in person. Persons who wish to speak virtually in favor or in opposition to an application will identify themselves accordingly to the IS technical staff for participation during the presentation of the applications. And persons who speak virtually will acknowledge and affirm that his or her testimony before the BOC is under oath and affirmed to be truthful.
Okay, so need a motion to that effect? Have a second? I'll second. We have a second. In discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Rowling. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to John. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Today's hearing, as the County Attorney stated, will be conducted in person and virtually. For those people participating virtually, we're going to follow the following procedure. Each case will be presented and called in order. We will recognize those on site and virtual in support and opposed to a specific case. For virtual speakers, to support or oppose a case, you want to follow the following procedure. In order to support a case, you would want to type into your Q&A box, for example, Z46 of 2020 SUP to support it. If you would like to support and also speak on a case, you would want to type into your Q&A box SUP Z46 speak. Also, to oppose a case, you would want to do a very similar process. You would want to type in OPP to oppose a case in your Q&A box and followed by the case number. So it would be OPP Z46 if you want to oppose a case. If you would like to oppose a case and also speak for the case, you would want to type into your Q&A box OPP Z46, for example, and then speak. And that would alert us to know that you would want to speak, and we can take measures to allow you to speak. Speakers will be called by name. Your line will be unmuted when it's your turn to speak. Please state your name, where you live, and that you affirm that you've been sworn in. Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When the case is called, would the applicant please stand if they are in attendance and signify that they are present. Then we're going to call to see if anyone here is opposed in person to a case. We would ask that anyone in person opposed to the case, please stand and raise your hand so they can be counted for the record. After the recognizing of the applicant and any opposition, both parties will be asked to come forward, be sworn in, so they can present testimony to the Board of Commissioners. The applicant would testify first, and then the opposition, if any, would testify second. It's important to note that each side only gets 10 minutes to state their case or concerns. There's not a process to reserve your time, and there's not a process for rebuttal. So please convey all your information to the board within your 10-minute time frame. Additionally, if there's more than one person who wishes to speak on a case, you may want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes, and you don't want to cover the same information twice. After the 10-minute presentation periods are finished, the Board of Commissioners will start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, they may ask one or more persons for additional comments or questions. And after that, the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the case at hand. There are 4 cases on today's printed agenda which have been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z46 of 2020, Vladimir Popov. This case was withdrawn without prejudice by the applicant and will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z55 of 2020, Silver Creek Properties Incorporated. This case was withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. SLUP 4 of 2020, White Oak Longline Holdings LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard. And finally, other business item number 39 of 2020, Macklin Village LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. Mr. Chairman, Board, there is one case on today's agenda.
John, just 1 second, please. Commissioner Cupid, yes.
Oh, yes. John was going to refer to another District 4 case.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Board, there is one case on today's printed agenda which has been continued a number of times since June, and it just seems like there's no progress being made on the case. So the staff would ask the board to withdraw without prejudice rezoning case Z30 of 2020, Ralph S. Elmsbury.
Commissioner Cupid.
Yes, I move that we add Z30 to the list of withdrawn cases without prejudice. The applicant just has not been responsive.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Do we have any discussion? Not, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, Board, there are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued or held and will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z13 of 2020, Arturo Martinez. This case was continued by the staff into the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so we will not hear rezoning case Z13 today. Rezoning case Z39 of 2020, KO Management Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so we will not hear rezoning case Z39 today. Rezoning case Z44 of 2020, Peach State Salvage Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z44 of 2020 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z45 of 2020, Springhouse Kennesaw. This case was continued by the staff until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So we will not hear rezoning case Z45 today. Rezoning case Z49 of 2020, Sutter Hill Vinings LP. This case was continued by the staff until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z49 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z50 of 2020, Meritage Homes of Georgia. This case was continued by the staff until the November 17th, 2020 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So rezoning case Z50 of 2020 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z52 of 2020, Carl Edward Dills. This case was continued by the staff until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So rezoning case Z52 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z53 of 2020, the Revived Land Group LLC. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z53 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z54 of 2020, Galaxy Childers Land LLC. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z54 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z56 of 2020, Venture Communities LLC. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z56 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z59 of 2020, Tamina A. Patwary. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z59 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z61 of 2020, Greenline Partners LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z61 will not be heard today. SLUP 8 of 2020, 1420 Lockhart Holdings LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLUP 8 will not be heard today. Case ROD 1 of 2020, Atlantic Realty Acquisitions LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the November 3rd, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So ROD 1 of 2020 will not be heard today. And other business item number 56 of 2020, Derek Cochran. This case was continued by the staff until the November 17th, 2020 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 56 will not be heard today. Mr. Chairman, Board, there is one case on today's printed agenda which the board does need to continue. There does need to be more work on this case. So the staff would ask the board to continue other business item number 64, Blast Off Construction Incorporated.
64. Okay, Commissioner Gamble, that's yours.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hold OB 64 until November 17th hearing.
Okay, we have a second. We have a second for Mr. Cupid. Any other comments, questions?
Continue, not hold.
Continue, right?
Continue,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Any other questions? Okay, and that, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Commissioner Cupid, please, yes.
I have another case, OB 38, to add. We just had a lot of correspondence since Friday between attorneys for this case and also an adjacent property, and so They have both agreed to spend some time addressing some of the transportation recommendations. And with that, I would like to continue other business item 38 until the next zoning hearing.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Yes.
John, I might have missed it. Other business item 51 was withdrawn, correct? The one on Hyde Road?
I don't have that as being withdrawn, Commissioner Ott.
I thought that's what you told me last week.
I know they were talking about it, but I don't believe I got a letter for it.
Okay. Well, because I think what you told me was that they had withdrawn the lot split variance, which if they don't get the variance, then why would we be doing, yeah, Parks, why don't you come up?
We have withdrawn that request.
Other business 51, right? All right, so John, I'll make a motion since it's on the agenda.
Okay.
To make a motion to allow other business item 51 to be withdrawn without prejudice.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Variance go in? Not for the lot split.
Okay, thank you. All right. I do have a few more announcements before we start the consent agenda. I would like to ask everyone in today's audience in the room to please turn your cell phones off. The ringing does interfere with the broadcast and presentations. Any person wishing to speak before the Board of Commissioners must file a campaign contribution disclosure statement. If within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of a rezoning application, a campaign contribution totaling $250 more is made to a current member of the Board of Commissioners. Additional information concerning this announcement is located on the table in the back of this room. And I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to this hearing. Any information submitted to this board after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by the board at their discretion. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
Can I ask one thing for first, John? Could you move the microphone a little bit closer to your mouth?
Sure.
I got helicopter ears, and so no one else in the room can hear, but I can, so I'm sorry. Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Okay, Cobb County Board of Commissioners, zoning hearing consent agenda for October 20th, 2020. First case on consent is rezoning case Z57, 2165 Canton Road LLC. Request rezoning from GC and R20 to NRC for a specialized contractor who is a cleaning business in land lots 708 and 709 of the 16th District. The property is located on the west side of Canton Road and on the north side of Kurtz Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan received by the zoning division on August 12, 2020, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number two, letter from Mr. Doug Cunningham, dated September 25, 2020. Number three, letter from Ms. Carol Brown, dated September 24, 2020. Number four, variances as detailed in the zoning comments. Number five, adhere to the Canton Road design guidelines. Number six, 20-foot landscape buffer or undisturbed buffer if not developed adjacent to any residentially zoned property. Number seven, no outdoor storage or displays of merchandise. Number eight, no automotive-related uses. Number nine, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Number 10, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. And number 11, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Mr. Chairman and Board, is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z56? Let the record show there's no one opposed to rezoning case Z56, either in person or online.
Did you say Z56 or 7?
Excuse me, Z57, Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
thank you.
so guess my hearing's not that bad.
Rezoning case Z58, Battle Ridge Pavilion LLC and Tiffany Tomato Incorporated. Request rezoning from LRO to NRC for retail in land lots 338, 339, 402, and 403 of the 19th District. The property is located on the northwest side of Powder Springs Road, northeast of Macklin Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Planning Commission recommendation to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan received by the zoning division on August 6, 2020, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, District Commissioner to approve any changes to the building architecture. Number 3, adhere to the Macklin Road Design Guidelines. Number 4, variance as detailed in the zoning division comments. Number 5, prohibited uses as stated in the summary of the applicant's proposal, section of this report, page 385 in the zoning analysis under proposed use. Number 6, add the following list of prohibited uses. No billboards or pool halls, no billiards or pool halls, no community fairs, no recycling collection, no group homes, no light automotive repair or auto repair of any kind, no convenience store self-service fuel sales, no emissions or testing or inspections of cars, no freestanding climate-controlled facility, no full-service gas station, no funeral home, no convalescent home, no personal care home, no automotive repair no non-automotive repair service, no parking for vehicles, no overnight parking, no pawn shops, no radio, television, or other communication towers or antennas to the full extent we continue to have authority to regulate such due to the changes in federal law. No vape shops, no video stores, no laundromats, no tire stores, no oil change and or lube shops, and no self-service fuel stations. Number 7, allowed uses include daycare facilities, car wash, auto parts stores that do not include outdoor storage, and dry cleaners. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z58?
No.
Nope. Let the record show there's no one opposed to rezoning case Z58, and there's no one here virtually opposed to rezoning case Z58. Rezoning case Z62, Ravella Conrad requests a rezoning from GC to NRC for a catering kitchen and restaurant in land lot 46 of the 18th District. The property is located on the south side of Veterans Memorial Highway, east of Allen Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on August 7, 2020, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, for this applicant only. Number 3, for catering kitchen only. Number 4, no customer pickup, all catering to be delivered to customers. Number 5, existing pole sign to be removed within 30 days of the Board of Commissioners zoning decision. Number 6, all dumpsters and masonry dumpster enclosures with steel gates to comply with county development standards. All dumpsters to have rubber lids. Number 7, parking to be striped to county standards. Number 8, parking plan to be approved by the zoning division manager. A minimum of 7 spaces to be provided. Number 9, all debris and construction material located outside to be removed. Number 10, the canopy to the rear of the building to be repaired or removed. If repaired, the bent support pole to be replaced. Number 11, proper drainage to be added to the roof runoff to avoid further erosion around the foundation. Number 12, all graffiti to be painted over to match the rest of the building such that no graffiti is no longer visible. Number 13, building to be painted, the colors to be the existing exterior colors of a white building with and brown facade. All other colors to be approved by the district commissioner. Number 14, no certificate of occupancy or business license until stipulations related to the canopy, pole sign, debris, dumpster enclosure, parking, drainage, and paint are complete. Number 15, variances as detailed in the zoning division comments. Number 16, adhere to the Mapleton Parkway and Veterans Memorial Highway Design Guidelines. Number 17, no outdoor storage or outdoor display of merchandise. Number 18, no restaurant use. Number 19, site plan review comments and recommendations. Number 20, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Number 21, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. And number 2, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z62? No. Let the record show there's no one here in person or no one here online to oppose rezoning case Z62.
John, excuse me, I just wanted to add a sentence to
Okay.
stipulation 13. Could be implied, but any additional changes to building architecture are to come back to the district commissioner.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Moving into the special land use permits on consent agenda, SLEP 9, Christian Crawford requests a special land use permit for chipping, grinding, or reduction of tree debris and vegetative waste transfer in land lots 131 and 132 of the 16th District. The property is located on the east side of Fowler Circle, north of Winford Drive. The Planning Commission recommends to approve SLUP 9, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, site plan received by the zoning division on June 25th, 2020. Number 2, letter from Kenton Road neighbors dated August 22, 2020. Number 3, limit hours of operation from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Number 4, no operations on weekends or holidays. Number 5, no chipping, grinding, or reduction of tree or vegetative waste. Number 6, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Number 7, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. And number 8, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to SLEP 9? No. Let the record show there is no one here virtually or in person to oppose SLEP 9. SLEP 10, A1 Auto Course LLC, requests a special land use permit for auto salvage in land lot 292 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of West Atlanta Street and on the north side of Pearl Street. The Planning Commission recommends approval of SLUP 10, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, site plan received by the zoning division on August 6, 2020. Number 2, District Commissioner to approve the landscape plan. Number 3, site plan review comments and recommendations. Number 4, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. And number 5, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to SLEP 10? Let the
I've
record
got
show
one
there's-
question. Commissioner Burrow, I noticed here on these, on 2 of the storage containers or dumpsters, are they all going to be covered, or these are like for heavy machinery parts that they're going to just throw them into? The only reason I asked is that the original case said that everything had to be covered. And now we're going to have two dumpsters that are going to be open.
I believe that's another business case coming on later in the agenda, Mr. Chairman. It's not this case.
A dumpster as opposed to a roll-off.
Oh, okay, all right.
Roll-offs are covered when they're.
Okay, all right.
When they're taken to the grinders.
Okay, all right, I was just curious. Thanks.
Okay, let the record show there's no one here in person or virtual opposed to
That's still
SLP 10.
needs to be removed as opposed to overhead dumpster and roll-off.
Well, are we confused in this case with your other business
I
item?
think if we just clear up that issue, okay? Because the original zoning case required everything to be covered, but the nature of this dumpster, there isn't a cover for it because heavy machinery parts go in there. And I think that's the reason for this kind of a roll-off dumpster. Yeah, exactly, right. So I'm just,
It's tarp when it's taken on the road.
Right.
Not when it's on the road.
okay, so in case somebody brings it up, we've got the discussion here as to why we made the distinction between the two. We had the original zoning which required them, but this is not a dumpster, this is a roll-off. Okay. So, but I'm fine with that. I now understand the nature of this container that we're using.
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
thank you. And moving into other business items on the consent agenda. First item is other business item number 47 of 2020, which is to consider a stipulation amendment for Cooling Limited LLC regarding rezoning application Z15 of 2013 for property located at the northeast intersection of Canton Road Connector and Guffin Lane in land lot 781 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, Exhibit A received June 7, 2020. Number 2, proposed site plan contained in the other business packet. And number 3, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this recommendation to remain in effect. There's no one here in person, and there's no one here virtually opposed to this case. Next case is other business item number 54 of 2020, which is to consider a stipulation amendment for Lido regarding rezoning application Z58 of 2016 for property located on the west side of Floyd and on the north side of White Boulevard. The property is located in land lots 30 and 31 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, proposed signage plans contained in the other business packet. And number 2, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this recommendation to remain in effect. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 54? Nope. Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to other business item number 54. Other business, item number 55 of 2020 is to consider a site plan approval for Mr. Fahd Yassin regarding rezoning application Z128 of 2005 for property located on the south side of Jamerson Road and on the north side of Locklear Way in land lots 54 and 55 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan contained in the other business packet with the district commissioner approving minor modification or minor changes. Number two, stormwater management comments. And number three, Department of Transportation comments. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 55? No. Let the record show there's no one here in person and there's no one here virtually opposed to other business item number 55. Other business item number 57 of 2020 is to consider a stipulation amendment from Mr. Tom Linder Jr. regarding rezoning application Z16 and SLUF 4 of 2018 for property located on the north side of Mount Wilkinson Parkway, on the east side of Spring Hill Parkway, and on the west side of I-285 in land lot 844 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, proposed signage plans contained in the other business packet. And number two, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this recommendation to remain in effect. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 57? No. Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to other business item number 57. Other business item number 58 of 2020 is to consider a reduction of minimum public road frontage for Silas K. Payne and Judy Andrews from 75 feet to 0 feet for tract 1 and from 75 feet to 35 feet for tract 2. The property is located on the southeastern side of Dallas of Ackworth Due West Road, south of Old Stylesboro Road, and land lot 183 of the 20th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. No additional subdivision of this property, fire department comments, and Cobb DOT comments. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 58? No. Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to other business item number 58. Other business item number 59 of 2020 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Elizabeth Garcia regarding rezoning application Z83 of 2015 for property located on the east side of Canton Road, south of Rosedale Drive, and land lots 588 and 637 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to number one, additional use as a countertop business is permitted, and number two, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 59? Mr. Chairman, there is no one here in person, but there is one person virtually opposed to other business 59, so we probably should pull that and hear it in its regular order.
Okay, Commissioner Burrow, you have a comment?
Yes,
Is it,
I had a stipulation to read into the record
Okay.
that I think it can be put back on consent. Who's the opposition?
It's Ms. Carol Brown.
Yeah,
You want to take some, is he in the back or is he virtual?
it's Carol.
She's virtual.
Oh, it's Ms. Brown, okay. So how do you want to handle
She
this?
sent us an email that it could go back on consent with the following stipulation that I was prepared to add in there.
Okay, you just want to amend it then to add that condition and keep it on consent?
Yeah, but
Oh.
can we,
Can we unmute Carol for a second and see if she's agreeable to that?
Well, as long as she agrees that with what with Commissioner Burrow's comment, we can leave it in consent, or she can type it in chat on the online. I just want to make sure that Commissioner Burrow and Mrs. Brown are on the same sheet of music. If that's the case, that she's going to agree to the stipulation, we can leave it on consent.
Okay.
I just want to verify that.
She is participating on the phone.
Okay,
She can be unmuted.
go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Commissioners, good morning. Along with one of the contiguous neighbors, I met with Ms. Garcia last night on site, and there had been concern about noise generated by the saw. And we found that it was very minimal. It's a state-of-the-art saw, and the noise is not an issue. However, we would ask that, and Ms. Garcia seemed agreeable to this, we would ask that the roll-up doors at the back of the building remain closed whenever there is any indoor construction of cabinets or sawing, and that would mitigate the noise. And at such time, if noise becomes an issue, Ms. Garcia would meet with the adjacent neighbors to discuss installing acoustic panels to buffer the noise. But at this point, she seemed agreeable. The saw did not, you could hardly hear it, even with the door open over the roar of traffic. So we feel that if she's still agreeable to those two stipulations about keeping the doors closed and being willing, if it becomes a problem, to install acoustic panels, it should probably go back on consent.
Okay, and so that's what you're going to read into the record?
Correct.
Commissioner Burrow? Okay, great, thanks. Go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to add no outdoor work, no outdoor storage unless behind the fence. Doors shall remain closed when indoor construction of cabinets and granite countertops, including operation of saw, is taking place. And then I think, rather than a step, shouldn't the consideration of the panels be a clerk's note, or does that need to be a step, John?
It's probably better off to be a stipulation so we can enforce it.
Okay. So I'd also add, if the noise becomes an issue, the applicant will meet with contiguous neighbors and install panels.
Yeah. Well, I think the issue is with regard to discussion potential of installing acoustic paneling. On the
Or
subject of...
consider installing
Yeah, right.
panels.
We can't mandate it right now, I don't think, because it's not a situation that's occurred.
Okay, we'll consider installing panels to be approved by the district commissioner.
There you go. Okay, that works. Okay, you got that on the record?
Got that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
So,
Okay, moving on. Other business item number 60 of 2020 is to consider a stipulation amendment from Mr. James Lascaris, who represents Dunkin' Donuts, regarding rezoning application number 213 of 1983 for property located at the southwest intersection of Bear Parkway and Bear Creek Boulevard in land lots 582 and 643 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, proposed elevations contained in the other business packet. And number two, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment, with this recommendation to remain in effect. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 60? No. Okay, let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to other business item number 60. Other business item number 61 of 2020 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Ferdinand Auto LLC regarding rezoning application Z120 of 1997 for property located on the south side of Hawkins Store Road, west of Canton Road, in land lot 277 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, additional use as an auto broker office is permitted. Number two, no car inventory on site and no cars for sale on site. Number three, Cobb DOT comments. And number four, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. There is no one here virtually opposed to this case. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 61? We do have one person, Mr. Chairman, so we'll pull that off consent and put that on the regular agenda.
okay.
Okay. Other business item number 62 of 2020 is to consider a stipulation and site plan amendment for Strategic Development Partners LLC regarding rezoning application Z99 of 2007 for property located on the east side of White Road, north of Riverside Parkway, in land lots 778, 789, and 790 of the 18th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. District Commissioner to approve the final building elevations prior to building permits. Number two, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this recommendation to remain in effect. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 62? Okay, let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to other business item number 62. And last on the consent agenda is other business item number 63 of 2020, which is to consider a stipulation and site plan amendment for SZS Holdings LLC regarding rezoning application, regarding application SLEP 7 of 2019 for property located on the west side of Roswell Road, south of Summit Village Drive and land lot 1100 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, proposed site plan contained in the other business packet. Number 2, stormwater management comments. And number 3, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 63? No. Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to other business item number 63. And that completes your consent agenda, Mr. Chairman and Board.
Okay, thank you. So I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as revised. Discussion? All in favor, seeing none, please raise your hand if you concur. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay. And
All right, so I think our first case is Z51, right?
correct.
Okay.
So all those folks who are here on site for the consent agenda, you're free to leave, except for those persons who are either in support or opposed to other business item number 61. Please stay in the room. Okay, first zoning case is rezoning case Z51 of 2020. Garner Group requests a rezoning from GC, NRC, CRC, PSC, and R20 to PVC for a mixed-use development in land lots 854, 855, 922, and 923 of the 19th District. The property is located on the north side of the east-west connector, west of Floyd Road, and the east side of Brookwood Drive. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 51 in person? Let the record show there's no one here in person opposed to other business item number, opposed to rezoning case Z51 of 2020, and there is no one here virtually opposed to rezoning case Z51.
So there's no one virtually opposed either, right?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Start out with just the board and just me, and then I've got a client, 2 minutes of the presentation, so we'll come up. He's got He's got it, and I think it's, he's got it. What's his name? Brad Garner, in my office. Jason was. They did say. That's fine.
Okay, Mr. Sams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Good to see you and other members of the board. For the record, my name is Garvis Sams. I'm with the law firm of Sams, Lark, and Huff in Bally here in the city of Marietta, and I represent the Garner Group and Graystar properties concerning this application for rezoning. I have several people with me today scattered about the room here and socially distanced and masked up, of course. I've got Mr. Brad Garner of the Garner Group who's going to be speaking to you just in a couple of minutes about his vision for this property and the evolution it's been through in the past couple of years. Mr. Rob Sucher, who is with and is the, at least for purposes of today, the sole representative for Graystar and the pivotal contact point that I've had in participation with he and his consultants. Also, Mr. Robert Drake of the Garner Group. And lastly, but probably, no offense to those guys, most importantly, is Mr. Blake Breadbender. He is our civil engineer. He's the project manager for Low Engineering. He's the project manager for this site from a transportational perspective. As you can see, we've got quadruple, in some instances almost quintuple road frontage for this property, a number of points of ingress and egress. So it's it may look one-dimensionally easy, but quite candidly, it's it's a difficult property to deal with simply because of all these moving parts. This is a case wherein your professional staff and the Planning Commission have recommended approval. It's contained in your zoning analysis. Staff has their own set of stipulations to which we are amenable, including the most recent stipulations and conditions that emanated, I think were provided to the Commissioner late last week, and she was kind enough to provide those to me as well. We have our latest stipulation letter. The controlling one is September the 28th. We submitted another letter on October the 15th, which covered some additional and revised residential renderings and elevations depicting the architectural style and composition, and also a revised site plan that simply took a notch out of the property that was otherwise ground leased to Burlington for purposes of its detention. Now, that's all exciting and wonderful, but what I'd like to do right now is introduce you to Mr. Brad Garner of the Garner Group, who identified this property, has a vision for it. He's going to be coming up now, and I can swear him in, or Mr. Peterson, either way, but he'd like to take a couple of minutes to share with you his vision for the property. It's Mr. Brad Garner.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brad Garner. I'm with the Garner Group. We're based here in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're owners and operators of open-air shopping centers throughout the Southeast and the Midwest. We've been doing it for about 30 years now, and we specialize in the revitalization of older centers. Over the years, that playbook has been, I won't call it simple, but it's been a capital infusion of a facelift and maybe some rebranding and remarketing, and that was how we could turn around a center from headed down to the B and C direction back to an A direction. Over the last decade, I think we all acknowledge that retail has shifted dramatically in this country, and a lot of headwinds, and that playbook simply doesn't work anymore. We need to repurpose shopping centers like this now, which what that means is other uses, whether that's office or medical or self-storage, and in this case, residential. And it's very rare that we get the opportunity to bring a shopping center and have the additional undeveloped land that we have with this center. So when we contracted for this property back in February of this past year, the property was clearly going downhill. It had been owned by a family for 30 years. Great family, good Cobb County family, but they were not really retail owner-operators and had not put a lot of capital back in this. All of the existing tenants from 1990 had left, moved around in the areas, and had a significant amount of vacancy. One of the anchors was looking to leave this particular location and altogether. The other anchor was looking for a relocation. So we called timeout with that. We talked to them about the vision that you're going to see here today, and we've been able to keep them contingent upon this rezoning and bringing this residential. When we sat down on the residential with our vision, the first thing we had to do was pick the right partner. We specialize in retail, and we needed a multifamily residential developer of top-notch quality, and we've chosen Greystar. Many of you know Greystar. They've done multiple Cobb County projects and have been just a godsend for us as we've worked through this project. As you can see, the colored section up there, all of the blue is our existing retail and all of the parking. It's kind of I don't want to get into too much of the minutia, but it's a classic 80s style shopping center that was designed in the 80s with big boxes, a sea of parking, and very non-pedestrian friendly. So the first thing that we did was we dropped a pin right in the middle of the center there, that roundabout, and said that's going to be our focal point, and we really wanted to integrate these two projects. So we've worked with Greystar, our engineers, our architects, and we've designed this here where that's the focal point. That's where everyone will come into the residential component, but we're opening it up to the existing retail. if you'll notice there in the corner, we're actually going to demolish about 10,000 square feet of the retail. So again, you're going to have this open air over to the residential. In addition, we've got a significant amount of pedestrian-friendly areas. You can see the green walkway from our center out to the road, which will connect to the bus stop, and hopefully we'll get some customers from the Cobb County Transit there as well. So I can talk and answer a lot of different questions, but I think the main focal point here was we're not going to just reskin a typical retail shopping center. It needed a significant capital infusion. We've got a lot of renderings. We've got a lot of new businesses that are already interested in coming there, and we're able to save the existing tenants that are there today as well by adding the residential component and significantly changing the retail portion.
The entirety of this property is within a community activities center on your future land use map, and our application is to rezone this for this mixed-use development. It's a large tract. There are those here today and watching on TV will probably understand this because you're seeing it throughout the county. It's a tired shopping center, and again, not to be pejorative to the owners, but they're not in that business. Mr. Garner and Graystar, of course, are. The architectural renderings and elevations you have before you even filed, we front-loaded this with the application itself. You have before and after pictures of the retail. You've got the newest architectural renderings and elevations from Graystar. The Planning Commission wanted us to do more in terms of masonry components, particularly those buildings that were oriented toward Floyd Road, which we have done. And Brad's right. This is not just reskinning this thing. This is a repurposing, a rehab, and a retrofitting, and an addition of some cutting-edge restaurants and retail. One of the first major stakeholders in the community we went to was Wellstar, and spoke with Scott Brooks, who is their real estate division manager for the entirety of the Wellstar system. And they're very receptive, both the housing opportunities, the retail opportunities. In point of fact, and this is an accurate, not assessment or evaluation or opinion, but it's been over 12 years since any multifamily properties have been developed within a 10-mile radius of Wellstar, save and except for the Presbyterian Village, which is fairly static at the moment. We have a 15-page stipulation letter. There's no way within the next 50 seconds that we can get into the minutia of that, but suffice it to say that it satisfied your planning commission and your staff, and now your DOT. And so for all these reasons, and based upon the information that you have before you today, we do respectfully request that you follow your planning commission's and your staff's recommendation, and then that you, Madam Commissioner and Mr. Chairman, vote to approve this application today. So we have Mr. Rob Sucher of Graystar. You've heard from Mr. Garner, and as I mentioned, we have our project manager from Transportation Traffic, Mr. Blake Breadbender. So we're all here and available at the appropriate time to respond to any questions you may have as I wrap it up with 2 seconds to go.
Thank you, Mr. Sams. Appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Cupid.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Garvis, for your presentation, and also Mr. Garner for being here in your presentation as well. This application has received a lot of attention, and in a good way. And I've received any inquiry from residents. It was followed up with them being appreciative to see something like this be a catalyst for the area. So we certainly appreciate this opportunity to help jumpstart or continue what I would say redevelopment along the east-west connector. And the way that retail has been going, anytime there's opportunity to bring residential closer to retail, it just strengthens the possibilities of success for retail. So it's good to see these developments come together on this one parcel. There are a couple of stipulations that I've spoken with the applicant that I will add to my motion. I move that we approve Z51 to the PVC zoning district, subject to Planning Commission comments and recommendations. However, adding reference to an October 15th letter, which modifies the site plan, legal description, rendering, and elevations for this site. Also, adding additional uses to be excluded, which include fireworks sales, discount sales stores such as dollar stores, wholesale merchandise-only stores, vehicle parking except for customers patronizing businesses within the retail area or for special event or special permitted purpose, check cashing establishments, secondhand thrift or used good or flea market establishments, precious metal sales. There was a proposed stipulation regarding automotive uses, and Garvis, if you're here, okay, just want to make sure that I get this language, okay?
Yes, ma'am, we would prefer, if it's appropriate to the board and to you, Commissioner, to have the authority to bring back an AutoZone, say an O'Reilly's, a Goodyear, as a permitted nationally branded use. I understand you don't want a lot of rogue car-centric uses, and if you could have it where it comes back to either you as the district commissioner or the subsequent district commissioner,
Okay.
that would be great.
Okay, that can work. Any new or additional automotive-related establishments to come back to district commissioner for review and approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And I heard what you said about the dollar stores. There is a Family Dollar that exists there. We really, of course, we're going to be just absolutely changing the aesthetics of that, but it's got a lease, and I would really like to be able to keep that one store that's already there, Commissioner.
I would like to add a similar stipulation to the automotive use, that any additional or new considerations of dollar store establishments come back to the district commissioner for review and approval.
Thank you,
Is that
Commissioner.
okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Very good. Also adding final building architecture and landscaping subject to district commissioner approval. And then one DOT comment. Staff received a traffic study from the developer and was in agreement with the study, however, had an additional recommendation. First, staff is in agreement to waive a left and right turn lane on Brookwood Drive, which is listed in the staff comments and recommendations. However, we will add that the applicant install concrete medians in the gored areas going towards Floyd Road to reinforce existing restrictions to help improve safety. And if that makes sense to you, Garvis, or the applicant, okay, very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we talking about pork chops there, or something like
That's
that?
a fancy way of saying pork chops,
Okay,
yes.
all right, just curious.
Bordered, yes. We're just trying to prohibit people from turning
Sure.
left going north. So with that, again, all other comments and recommendations submitted by the Planning Commission is to remain in effect that are not otherwise in conflict with those that I shared. Also, any recommendations and comments, stipulations of the applicant that were submitted are to remain in effect unless in conflict with those of the Planning Commission or of those stated here today. With that, all other staff comments and recommendations are to remain in effect.
Okay, so I'll second that motion.
Commissioner.
Questions from the...
I'm sorry, Commissioner Cupid?
Commissioner Ott?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Cupid, there was one other condition that
Oh,
we had
yes, thank
spoke
you.
about
Yes, I
regarding the
appreciate your
planning
reminder of
commission
that.
to be struck.
Yes, we will strike part, I believe it's planning commission comment 4. Give me one moment.
The last part of
Yes.
4.
Yes. Okay, we will strike the phrase, there shall not be any banners, flags, or other items hung outside." We will strike that phrase from planning commission comment number 4.
Okay. All right. So I'll still second your motion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Rao, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've worked with Greystar, and they do a tremendous job, and I'm sure Garner does too. However, I have a problem with this application, particularly the variances, but more importantly, the traffic. 2 out of the 3 roads have a grade, or the intersections have a grade of D and F. And we're looking at adding 402 apartments, which I just think is too much. I mean, you look at Albury Lane, or Drive, the houses that are on there, I just think that with the current ratings of the roads and with the number of residential units that are going to be added, I think it's going to overburden the roads. And I think it's going to create a hardship for the folks that already live there. The other variances, the reduction of the buffers, I know some of them are because the commercial that's going to be there is up against it, but the one variance talks about putting it right up against the folks across the street and a reduction of 200 parking spots. I mean, if the shopping center is as successful as the applicant hopes, I think the reduction of 200 parking spots is going to be significant. So with the variances and the traffic concerns, and particularly the score of the intersections, Floyd Road is a D, and the east-west connector east of Brookwood is an F. And so with 402 apartments, that is just going to greatly overburden, because a lot of the apartments that we've approved in District 2 are around the 300 number, and the infrastructure on roads is much greater and better than in this area. So I appreciate what they're trying to do in the area to rejuvenate the shopping center. I know that retail is having difficulties, but it's just too many apartments for this area, so I cannot support it.
Okay, any other comments?
Yes, if you would like to address, the applicant would like to address that, or DOT.
Are you asking DOT or me?
Amy Diaz, DOT.
Yes, go ahead, Amy.
So we did review the traffic study as mentioned, though we agree there are transportation deficiencies in the area, the F that Commissioner Ott mentions. The additional traffic from these apartments, a significant percentage of the traffic that is already being processed by that intersection. So we had no requests at those locations for improvements from the developer.
Can I ask one question, Commissioner Cupid? I noticed in the DOT comments, there was a recommendation to align this with the Home Depot driveway. Could you show me on the map what you're talking about here?
Let me introduce again Blake Bradbender. He's our traffic engineer. I'll swear him in, and he can do.
Because I had concerns about Floyd Road, but I think you were addressing that. If you could show me on the map
Yes.
where you're talking about that alignment.
So the alignment with the Home Depot driveway is this location here. So the comment was just to make sure that this driveway was aligned with the Home Depot driveway. I think one of the original plans had it just slightly offset, but that's been adjusted there.
Okay. So will there be a traffic light there, Commissioner Cupid?
Not at this present time, there's no traffic light.
And the traffic, given what Commissioner Ott was saying about the density of the level of service of the traffic on that road, there wouldn't be that wouldn't warrant a light?
Well, unlike today, you don't see the number of entrance and exits onto Floyd. Unfortunately, everybody's pulling up by a gas station,
Sure.
which does create a bottleneck from my own experience at Floyd. With this development, there are additional 2 curb cuts and one's further north on Floyd Road, which would help alleviate everybody from converging on that one point near the intersection.
Well, that would be a right-in, right-out entrance there
The first one off of Floyd, the first one that's further.
on the left side?
Yes. on the
Okay,
right side.
and how about the one with Home Depot? Is that going to be full
Home
access?
Depot.
All right, are you did my wife just call in to all of you about my pronunciation of Home Depot?
It's a right-hand turn.
Well, it goes, Ben, the practical matter is, we're going to have 400 more units there and a lot of traffic from the shopping center. I guess my question to Amy is, and Commissioner, and Eric is, why don't we just put a traffic light there?
We did talk about that. We didn't want to necessarily put that on the owner during our discussion without having some agreement, which is why we put forward the additional stipulation we have for DOT today. But if the applicant is willing, we certainly have no qualms about proposing that the developer look at funding a traffic light after the site is developed. And Erica, you can help flesh out the details of that a bit more from our
So
discussion.
one option that we could do is kind of what we've done in some of the past developments. As it's being built out, keep an eye on it, and if the developer could contribute towards that signal, then we would be able to install the signal once warrants are met and it's built out.
Okay, well, look, I just think it's a blurring grasp of the obvious. Just going to need a traffic light there. I'm just saying that, let's go ahead and get ahead of the problem for once and work on doing something to put in traffic there, because I think that would go a lot of ways to address my concerns about the traffic on Florida, which I'm very familiar with, by the way. Just to, alleviate what we know is going to be an issue. I think the shopping center is going to be a success. I think the homes are going to sell out and rent out right away. And I just think we need to get ahead of something by putting a traffic light there, which would indicate our awareness of how successful this development's going to be. That's just my voice talking, all right? So I know it involves additional cost, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I'm not the traffic engineer, but we can have them speak. But we did take a lot of time and effort to give multiple points of ingress and egress out of this development. As you look at Floyd Road, again, furthest to the left, it's the north side, but furthest to the left, as Commissioner Cupid said, that's a right in, right out. Then there's another full access point, and then we have the one behind QT as well. We've designed the other road, which goes in towards the roundabout. You'll see the master detention pond. We specifically have that connecting road into the center as well. So hopefully we can alleviate traffic off of Floyd Road by actually letting them go through the shopping center and then on to East Nectar. Then Greystar also provided a rear interest over on Brookwood. So again, as Garvis started this whole conversation, I think to have the confluence of three different arteries there, we've done a pretty good job of alleviating the traffic. With that said, if it's required in the future, we'll agree to contribute to the potential light.
Okay, I appreciate it, because I know that right up the road from Floyd at Hurt Road, there's another brand-new development going in there. And I just, like I said, I don't know every street in the county, but this one I'm very familiar with, because it's my cut-through to get back up to Smyrna to avoid having to get on 75 and 285. So I appreciate it in the comments that I think it'll really help out in the long run, and it shows the residents there that they have hope if in fact what our hope is doesn't turn out to be right. It turns out to be something more adverse that'll impact their lives. So I appreciate that comment. And the other comment I have is I just want to make sure that there are several references made in this study to the city of Mapleton. And if we approve this zoning, this does not acknowledge any formal recognition of the city of Mapleton by the Cobb County government. Okay? I just want to make sure, because I don't want a backdoor. Someone saying, well, you approved it, so, and I know what you're trying to do by breaking it down into communities. But it's an administrative note. I think it's very important right now. Okay, any other comments from the commissioners?
Yes, if Erica can approach.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just want to get your guidance on crafting a stipulation for the light. I was going to add, developer agrees to contribute to traffic light where warrants when warrants are met? I'm just looking for very
Right.
specific.
So what we've done previously on some of the other ones is, we would continue maybe for 2 to 3 years past full build-out
For-
to verify traffic studies to see if the signal is warranted. And at that time, when it's warranted, or if it's warranted, during that so many years after full build-out, then
So I'll put
the
2 years
developer would
after
continue to
built,
contribute.
2 years after construction.
All right.
Full build-out.
And I heard him say he's willing to pay for it. I heard him say that, okay, so.
We appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions from the
And
board?
do we have to put a specific amount on it or contribute to the full cost of traffic light as adequate?
So I don't know a cost for that signal at that location.
Okay.
Preference
So
would be
I'll just put,
100%, but.
for cost of traffic signal. And for our county attorney, is that sufficient?
Well, it's sufficient for us. I don't know if it is for the applicant, if it's just the cost of it.
Yes.
We're more than happy to participate, and if that could be something that it could go back to the director of DOT and you, Commissioner, once we find out the costs and expenses, because there's the traffic signal, there's the signalization, the crosswalks, there's a lot to it. So once it's warranted and costed out, if that could be a decision that you and the director could make, approve, or review, whatever you think is the most proper wording.
Okay.
All right, any other comments?
I do need to add a stipulation.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, with that, we'll add the DOT stipulation that the developer agrees to cover cost of traffic light if warrants are met following 2 years of site build-out.
All right, so I agree. All right, with that, you good, Mr. Cupid?
Yes. Is the developer, are you okay? Okay.
So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? It passes 3-2, with Commissioners Gamble and Odd in opposition.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, the next one is LUP 17, right?
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Moving into land use permits on the agenda, LUP 17 of 2020, Evangelos M. Domestic House and Joyce B. Domestic House request a temporary land use permit for a special events facility in land lots 379 of the 16th District. The property is located on the east side of Knight Road, north of the termination of Knight Lane. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here in person opposed to LUP 17? Mr. Chairman, we have one person here in person opposed to LUP 17. We have 2 people virtually opposed to LUP 17 who want to speak. We also have 2 people here, 2 people virtually in support of LUP 17 who want to speak.
Okay. Morning, Mr. Moore? Yes.
There's 2 virtual who oppose who want to speak. There's 1 in person who's opposed who wants to speak. There's 2 in support virtually who want to speak.
Now I'm ready. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Kevin Moore here on behalf of the owners in this application for a temporary land use permit. I represent Dr. Evan and Joyce Domestic House in this application as it relates to their property located on Knight Road. They have 8.5 acres, 8.54 acres. It's a very large tract for this area that they own and have owned. They have transformed this property over the years into a beautiful showcase. This 8.5 acres where they live has been transformed with beautiful gardens and structures that are just really amazing to see, and certainly to see in person. What they are seeking, though, is a temporary land use permit to allow them to have special events and host special events at their property. They have gone to great pains as part of this process to ensure and make it known that what they're not trying to do is have a commercial operation, a commercial venture that will exist in perpetuity at this location. Rather, what they are attempting to do is to ensure that this property can be maintained in its beautiful state and has a method of funding for that for far into the future. And as a result, they are not seeking to simply have a business located there. They'll continue to live there and continue to keep the grounds up, to keep the gardens up, and to do that, they just need a way to make sure that this property can, in the future, operate as it does today as a beautiful showplace, and to do so, though, with sensitivity to its location in the neighborhood setting, and with sensitivity to its surrounding and adjoining neighbors, and you'll see that as you go through. You see the property in the survey before you right now that shows you how this property is located. You see Knight Road and Knight Lane intersection on the left-hand side of your screen. What we're now going to do, though, is kind of go through, and I think the pictures are worth 1,000 words, and I'm going to show you the beauty of the Domesta House property and what they would like to maintain and keep going in the future, even when they are in fact gone and their children take over. As we go through and scroll through these pictures, you can see the beauty of their property. You can see how well suited it is to host smaller, limited events and do so in a proper and appropriate manner. As you scroll through, you'll just be overly impressed if you've had the opportunity to go there in person. It's even more impressive in person as to how these grounds have been developed and built and installed over the years by Dr. and Mrs. Domesta House. When we get to the end of the pictures, I want to briefly go over with you the highlights of certain restrictions that we have agreed to and they have agreed to in order to be sensitive to their neighbors and adjoining neighbors. And this is in our stipulation letter with a couple of additions and changes. These are restrictions that they have voluntarily agreed to. Number one, a maximum of 2 events per month with a maximum of 40 guests. That's a maximum on a per monthly basis. We had previously agreed that there could be 6 events with a maximum of 75 guests. We now, since even further discussions over the last several days, have agreed to delete that request. So that's now deleted by my presentation here today. So again, this would simply be limited to a maximum of 40 guests, no more than 2 events per month. Nighttime events can only be held on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they have to conclude by 10 p.m. And in fact, even on Sunday, since it's traditionally a school night, it has to conclude by 9 p.m. There are no nighttime events that can occur Monday through Thursday. All events Monday through Thursday have to conclude by 6 p.m. What you can see here is a great sensitivity by the Domesta Houses to their neighbors. Live music is prohibited except for live acoustical music. Any music that is done with speakers or amplified will be amplified towards the interior of their property as well. Also importantly, all parking is on site. They have parking available completely on site in their pastures to accommodate all of the guests and those vehicles completely on site. No parking on the street and so forth. It can all be accommodated on the site. Also, at this point in time, we are only seeking a 1-year temporary land use permit. Those could be issued up to 24 months. What we are trying to do is simply say to those who doubt that this can be accomplished, to let them show you that they can do this, they can do it in a respectful manner with these restrictions and not cause issues. The very nature of a temporary land use permit is it's only temporary. You have to come back in and have it renewed. That's a stopgap measure for the county. If things have not gone according to plan, if there are issues, if there's problems, they cannot be renewed. Further, as a permit, as a land use permit, if there's problems that have occurred, those can be pulled and revoked in a show cause hearing. They can be brought here before you as a Board of Commissioners and have to demonstrate why they haven't violated those rules or what the issues are. So this is not a permanent problem that's created by an approval. It's just the opposite. And what we're proposing here by simply saying, let them do it for 1 year and show that this is not an issue. Because they've had events where they've hosted private events at their home, that they've hosted larger events, much larger than 40 guests at their home, where they've hosted charitable events and fundraiser events that they have been involved in. And they've done so very remarkably well. Lastly, I want to discuss that this permit would be specific to the Domesta House domestic houses themselves or a member of their family, meaning that's who has to own the property and live there, is either the domestic houses or their family. And that's the only way this land use permit applies. If it's sold to somebody else or down the road and you don't have that sense of confidence in the way that they have operated, that doesn't happen. This is a stipulation that we would be adding, that it's person-specific in terms of this land use permit. I do want to note that on October 8th, there was a letter submitted containing the signatures of 9 adjoining neighbors in complete support of this application, and that's very rare. A lot of times if you support or do not object, you just don't say anything. These 9 neighbors took the opportunity to send a signed letter to the Cobb County Planning and Zoning Department. A couple of them are going to speak now, and I'll reserve the rest of the time for the 2 speakers who want to speak in support of this application, who are neighbors and can speak to it directly. Thank you.
Okay.
Our virtual speaker in support, the first one is Andy Rumbaugh. Andy, you can go ahead and speak.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the commissioners for giving me a few minutes here. My name is Andy Rumbaugh. I live at 1853 Lake Ebenezer Trail, so I directly border the domestic house's property right behind where the horses are. And I can tell you I have absolutely no reservations with this. I fully support and endorse the application for the temporary land use permit. The property is meticulously maintained, and the pride of ownership that the domestic houses have in the property, I think really speaks to whatever events they are hosting there. I'm confident they would never allow anything to diminish not only the property, but the enjoyment of the neighbors and our neighborhood. They have hosted many of their neighbors on the property even prior to COVID, but especially during the lockdown. They encourage their neighbors to come and walk the property and visit the horses, and I have absolutely no reservations that would change as a result of anything related to this land use permit. Again, I fully endorse the application. I have zero concerns as it relates to traffic or any impact that the events would have on us. I don't think there will be any impact, and I fully endorse the application again. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Our second virtual speaker in support is Juliana Rumbaugh. Juliana, it's your turn to speak.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for hearing me today. I am married to Andy Rumbaugh, who you all just heard, and I second everything that he says. We've lived in this property for 5 years, as a house property, and have had no complaints, no issues. They host the annual Make-A-Wish Foundation charity event at Halloween every year prior to this year. And that's a much larger event than any event that they're proposing to have with this land use permit. And we've had no issues. They've never gone beyond the Cobb County ordinance of 11 p.m., I believe it is, with the music or anything. So they've been wonderful neighbors to us. We have, again, no issue with this permit, with the events being held, especially with the new restrictions that they've included. We fully support it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
That is all the virtual
Okay.
speakers in
I
support.
thought we had one in-person supporter?
They're opposed.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, you have 25 seconds, Kevin.
Thank you. Oftentimes in zoning applications, we get asked the questions, why can't you just make it a park? That's what the domestic houses have done. This is a beautiful piece of property that can be preserved by allowing this land use permit with the appropriate restrictions that they have voluntarily agreed to continue. Otherwise, it just turns into another 9-acre subdivision in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, those in opposition now.
We have two virtual in opposition. The
Okay.
first speaker will be Eric Jackstadt. Mr. Jackstad, it's your turn.
Okay. Mr. Jackson?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. And thank you for this opportunity. My name is Eric Jackstad. I live at 3401 Ebenezer Farm Road, which immediately borders the property in question. On the survey, it's over to the right-hand side. The only separation between us and the property is a 6-foot wooden fence. One of the structures on the property actually goes above that wooden fence and has windows and a little balcony that looks over the fence into our backyard. My concern is, I mean, currently this is a very quiet residential neighborhood, cul-de-sac. We're concerned that, there will be, additional noise, music at night, just sort of general increased traffic and activity. We do hear on those rare occasions where there's private events there, we definitely do hear the music coming from the property. And we feel like a portion of the value of our neighborhood is the fact that it is this quiet residential property. And we feel that, if there's an event facility immediately bordering it, people who might consider buying into the neighborhood, they see there's an event facility, they're not gonna go look up what all the restrictions are. They'll just sort of move on because there's this commercial facility. I understand it's not commercial right now, but another concern that we have is this is a temporary land use permit, but yet obviously the goal is to make a permanent long-term solution. So we feel like if this temporary land use permit is granted, it's sort of the first step on the road to making a zoning change. And we're concerned, even though the current applicants, they're great neighbors, obviously what they've done to the property is beautiful. We're just concerned about the future, what happens if the zoning's eventually changed and, things can change over time. I guess that's all I have to say for now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Our next virtual speaker in opposition is Leslie Felder. Leslie, it's your turn.
Hi, how are you this afternoon or morning?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Leslie Felder. I live at 1849 Lake Ebenezer Trail. I am neighbors with Evan and Joyce, and also live right next door to Andy and Juliana that you heard from earlier. I'm in agreement with the fact that this property is absolutely beautiful. I'm also in agreement that these Evan and Joyce are very nice people. I've got no qualms with that, and I do agree with that. Normally they've had a couple of events during the year, and they've notified us in advance that they're having that, and it has not been a problem. The amount of events that they are planning on having in the future is obviously a great deal more. The sound does travel very easily onto where we are because we're right in their backyard. And if you look at going across the pond, the sound does carry substantially. And again, if it was just once or twice a year, I have no qualms with that. But doing it every weekend on a Friday and Saturday, and then they have also some of these events during the course of the week, is a bit of a concern. One is, of course, the increased traffic that is going to be created on Knight Road. Knight Road, if you're familiar with it, is already a road that has hills. The sight lines are poor on it. It has no shoulder. When you have an increase of that traffic, and with maybe some adult beverages involved in events, it can create a severe danger to the local residents that are along that road, and of course to the individuals traveling on that road. Those are the things that I really wish that you take into consideration. I have submitted some other comments to each and every one of you prior to this meeting. And I'm just simply asking that you support the Commission's recommendation to deny at this point. I'll reserve time for others that wish to speak, and I thank you in advance.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for your comments.
There are no more virtual speakers?
I thought we had one in presence. We have one in opposition. I thought was in attendance. Yes, there she is. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Stemman. I live on Knight Road. And I just wanted to say one thing about the traffic. I hadn't thought of that one before. But Ebenezer Farms isn't impacted by the traffic like we are on Knight Road. Okay, and it's, as they said, narrow, hilly, but you can't see from one hill to the next. And another concern I had was that once you have a commercial property, would that not open up to other commercial properties? Because like one of the reasons for denial, that it's a residential area and there's no commercial, so I don't know if that would be a problem or not. Concerned about, the resale of the homes, both Ebenezer Farm, and on Knight Road. And then they said, again, the parking is going to be in the pasture, even with the reduced number of people, that's their parking in the pasture. I would think that might become a muddy mess depending upon time of day and year, but wouldn't they need to have some kind of paved parking? This has been denied by the, the staff, the zoning commission, and there are a lot of issues with it. I am aware that they've made some concessions, and I'm aware that they've made some new concessions, but I have not seen them, we have not seen them, and I think that we would need time to see the new concessions so that we could make a better decision about, what they're going to do with this property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Demi. Okay, Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you. Okay, when this first came to us, my first thought was 100 or more guests in a residential area. Knight Road is a minor collector. I'm in that area a lot because I live near there between Ebenezer and Blackwell. And I understand what the applicant wants to do, and, they have made some concessions with reducing the number, but as our last speaker mentioned, that hasn't gotten out to the public. Also, the letter that Mr. Moore referenced with the nine residents in Ebenezer Farms in support of this. 4 out of the 9 listed are adjacent to this property. We have had a lot of emails in opposition to this, and Planning Commission did hear it, but I'd like to hold this for a month and give the applicant an opportunity to meet with Ebenezer Farms and the adjacent property owners that are in opposition, to see if there's something that could be worked out. Right now, It's my understanding right now that the applicant can have large groups on private property without a LUP, as long as it's not, as long as the proceeds are going to a charity or it's a private event, family wedding or something like that. But to rent it out is required, a land use permit is required. And as Mr. Moore said, if there are any violations of these stipulations, if this did get approved for 1 year at a time, we could require a show cause hearing and revoke the permit. So I'm willing to have some dialogue with the neighbors and some concessions from the applicant. I would look at more limiting the number of events a month. I think the restricted hours are reasonable, but maybe reduce the number and the number of events and the number of attendees. So I'd like to make a motion to hold this and request that the applicant meet with Ebenezer Farms, surrounding neighbors, Knight Road and Ebenezer Farms, to see if something can be worked out and come back to us in November 17th.
Okay, so I'll second that motion. Commissioner Ott.
I agree with Commissioner Burrow that it needs to be held at the best. I think that there needs to be a discussion, like you said, it's for an application for a temporary land use permit for a year. I think that if you're trying to ease into a situation, you should basically limit the number of events that can happen over the course of the year. Also, I think that the borders of the property with the neighbors needs to be protected in stipulations or whatever that would condition as to what type of events, whether or not they could be on the outskirts of the property. And also to address the comments about the traffic on Knight Road, you could also potentially have them discuss or require some sort of security on Knight Road at the entrance to direct traffic when there's an event. So basically, what I'm saying is that in order to give the applicant the opportunity to do what they want to do, I think that they have to go above and beyond on the things that they do for the neighbors that live next door and around it or pass up and down Knight Road. And so I think that all the discussions, limit the number of people, limit the number of nights of event, address the traffic coming in and out of the property, and address any things that are on the outskirts of the property that might impact the neighbors.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
I would just like to add, if we can define event, because the event was used multiple times throughout the stipulations, and in reviewing the application, they wanted to have employees work Monday through Sunday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. And that kind of was conflicting with only having 2 events a year. So I guess my question is, are you looking at just hosting events here, or are you looking to have this open for people to drop in and walk during the day if they want to, take their kids out to a different, say, park setting during the day? So I was a little confused about that. And then also, I agree with Commissioner Ott as far as requiring some kind of safety, hiring our police to help direct traffic. But then also, if we can define where, like, the tables and chairs will be set up if an event is to be held, and then, again, further define parking.
Okay. Mr. Moore, can you come back up? I believe the applicant has agreed to have security or traffic control
Yes.
at each event.
Yes, we would have that, and I'll make sure that's included and circulated around,
Okay.
yes.
And there is no parking on the street or the right-of-way. That's all inclusive of your stip letter.
Right.
And conditions.
And we can clarify those items to make sure there's not any confusion.
An event could be a wedding, a birthday party, or bar mitzvah, or whatever, I guess. But it would still be limited to whatever is decided, number of people and the restricted hours. One of the emails we received, and I think this addresses one of Commissioner Gamble's concerns, was the employees can stay an hour after the 9 o'clock deadline, and I guess that's to clean up or take down
Sure.
tables and chairs and equipment or whatever.
Right. And that was just a generalized statement from the application standpoint before we had all the discussions with residents and so forth and began to really narrow and restrict what we were going to do. This is not meant to be an open house park where you would have daily employees and those types of things, other than the typical maintenance people that he uses today. So that's all.
Right. And the events would be scheduled or a contract.
Correct.
With the applicant and whatever event is going on, a wedding or a party or whatever, that would be a scheduled event. It wouldn't be just open to the public, is my understanding. Now, you may need to stipulate that or address that.
Sure.
But as a private owner, he could have his family over or a neighbor over during the day
Sure.
at his house. I mean, that's not
Right.
part of this land use permit request. Okay. So I need you to have a community meeting, and I'll be happy to be there if you want me to, or if the neighbors want me to discuss this and with your revised conditions, and we'll hold it till the 17th of November.
We'll clarify these items.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Kevin, do any of the family members live here?
Oh, yeah, Dr. and Evan and Joyce.
So do they live in the main house, or?
They live, yes, they live in the main house.
Could you
That's
tell
their
us
home.
just, I mean, there's a lot of things on this map here. Could you
Yes.
tell us what everything is?
Sure, I can do that. It'll take a minute, but, they have there's several garden areas. There's one that's kind of the circle gardens with the greenhouse. That's one area of gardens. All the wooded areas that you see between there and the main house, which is in the middle, are pathline garden areas that completely encircle the property. There's also, where they have their pool and fountain areas off from the main house, again, garden areas. There is a small stable and horse rink and corral that is on the property. That was that last picture that you saw, as well as the bocce ball court that you saw as well. There is a small chapel, additional garage on the property as well. That they're all tied together. It's really, when you're looking at it from an aerial standpoint, it's a little bit different. You're used to seeing that vantage point, but they're all tied together very well and seamlessly as you walk through their property. So there's various areas you can hold events depending on what it is and when it is and those types of things. And especially given the restrictions that they're willing to do to make them small events, those can be managed appropriately. And we're going to clarify those questions as well as the questions from Commissioner Gambrell as well. And we'll certainly meet with those that spoke in opposition and continue to do so as we have been and as he has been a really good neighbor to do. So we're happy to take this opportunity and see what we can do with it.
Okay, so with that, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion to continue to next month? Please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, let's take a short break till 10:55. Okay, thank you, Cornelius. All right, we're, I believe the next one is Z60, is that correct?
Rezoning case Z60, Petroplex Joint Venture, request a rezoning from LRO to CRC for retail in land lot 708 of the 16th District. The property is located on the east side of Kent Road, south of Powell Wright Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z60? No. Mr. Chairman Board, there is no one here in person opposed to rezoning case Z60. We do have one person virtually who's opposed to Z60 who would like to speak. So we'll let the applicant make his presentation, and then we'll go on to the opposition.
Okay, fine.
Good morning,
Morning.
members of the commission, or board rather. My name's Tom Mitchell. I'm the owner and the attorney, and I represent property I own under the name Petroplex Joint Venture, located at 2120 Canton Road in Marietta, Georgia. By way of background, this was a blighted property for a good 15 or 20 years until we purchased it in 2017. It was an old gas station. It was GC, and it was zoned LRO by consent in March of 2018, but it was heavily stipulated and rendered useless. It had no economic value as LRO. Mr. Pedersen and Commissioner Burrell can tell you everyone who ever attempted to apply or applied to put their business there was denied for one reason or another because of the LRO, because of the restrictions in LRO. The LRO designation for this property is just too narrow. It's a 0.88 acres, so it's nearly an acre. It's nearly 1 acre, and it's got about a 900 square foot building. So it's a lot more lot and a lot more yard than it is anything else now. For 2 years or so, it had no economic value. I paid the taxes and the upkeep expenses and tried to find a user and just couldn't. We're flanked by a lot of GC. We're flanked by DK Power Equipment, Castile Heating and Air, which is GC and CRC. Across the street is formerly $13 emissions, now newly rebranded $16 emissions. We have a Napa Auto Collision Center across the street. Z57 just went through. It was formerly the Horseshoe Places, and it went through today via consent as NRC, as Georgia Environmental. We also have Maple Leaf Landscape across the street. That's old residential. And to the south of us, we have a mall with a trophy and yarn shop. That's zoned NRC. In the south of that is Mr. Sparky, and I think that's zoned NRC. In April of 2020, Ultimate Tailgating decided to use the property for their office and retail event planning business. They have some RVs that are ancillary to their business. They also sell some small retail things in the store, like bulldog parking and some coolers and some other things that lend itself to the retail nature. I think that even the opposition, Ms. Brown, she only opposes certain aspects of it. She doesn't. I don't think anyone here opposes it being zoned NRC. We had applied for CRC, but we can live with NRC based on all of our research. So Ultimate Tailgating's been on site without incident, and then a single complaint was filed because there was an RV out front. It wasn't because it was loud or big or noisy or cheap or blight. It may have been just because it was too close to the road. And so therefore a code enforcement case commenced, and that put us to where we are today, having to make a new application for zoning to get ourselves placed in the right category. Mike Bailey is the proprietor of Ultimate Tailgating, and he is here today. I think Commissioner Burrell and Ms. Williams went out there, and maybe some other folks who went out there and saw the operation. I think that everyone agrees that this property is 10,000-fold better condition and look and everything about it. I think everyone would agree that it's nice to have a going concern on Canton Road. It's at the top of the connector where the connector ends and Canton Road begins. And finally have a business there that has some lights on and give that little piece of the corridor some life. Mike keeps the property immaculate. Even as I had the property for the past 2 years unoccupied, I think even Ms. Brown will tell you that I kept it pretty good. I keep my grass cut, I keep my shrubs in check, I keep it as clean and neat as I can, even when it's unoccupied, and people would go on and dump trash, and I'd go on and I'd pick up trash. So finally, we agreed to put a fence across the property so that way it wouldn't become, there was no more garbage. So in response to the complaint, we filed a new application on August 5th. We're in a future land use, our future land use is Neighborhood Activity Center. So there can be CRC, but more likely NRC in this district. On September 25th and October 5th, Canton Road Neighbors made its recommendations to delete to NRC in support of allowing ultimate tailgating and requested some special provisions that I'm sure Ms. Brown will address. On December 29th, staff made recommendations. There were 6 recommendations. They're all about DOT and the standard things, and we are in agreement with those. The 7th recommendation was that any RV would have to be parked behind the fence. We've negotiated back and forth with Canton Road Neighbors and in conferring with Commissioner Burrell on this, and sort of the point that we're at is we are asking to use the property NRC for ultimate tailgating in the legal entities, All Four Seasons 24/7 LLC and Ultimate Tailgating LLC, to be zoned NRC under 134-213-3 parking for vehicles. Alternatively, it fits in NRC under 134-213-11 for special exception uses for ANAC, other business and consumer goods. We've also agreed, well, I'll just do this. These are the stipulations that we're asking for. If I put it on here, will that knit? Is it right side up or upside down for y'all? So we have 2 pathways to NRC. Parking for vehicles, which is just straight NRC, parking vehicles and a retail business at the location, or under the special exception uses. We're trying to get ourselves to a point where we just have zoning on this property. So to that end, we have agreed to the following things. Site plan filed with zoning on August 6th with district commissioner approving minor modifications. Parking and landscape plan to be approved by district commissioner to provide adequate parking as well as frontage and landscape. Any new structure, district approval on the architecture, Department of Transportation comments, stormwater, water and sewage. And then we get into number 7, parking for vehicles as allowed in NRC for All Four Seasons 24/7 LLC and Ultimate Tailgating LLC. 2 large so these are the parts that are sort of in dispute. 2 large recreational vehicles may be kept in front of the fence for demonstration, pickup, and drop-off. And then I have in here, a maximum of 2 RVs may be parked in front of the fence overnight. There's been some talk back and forth that when he had it parked in front of the fence, it was parked by the street. We can agree to park it up against the fence in legally sized parking spots. This property in front of the fence and on the street side has about 17 parking spots. So we're just asking to be able to use 2 of those for after-hours drop-offs and and so that way he has an ability to use the property to its fullest extent. Access by RV limited to right in and right out, hours of operation Monday through Sunday, 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Applicant to install a building wall-mounted sign and/or a ground-based monument sign that complies with the Cobb County sign ordinance. Attached here is Exhibit A, which has been in all of our papers We've copied Fleming's sign. Any other future user seeking a special exception to come back to the district commissioner for approval. So a straight NRC user that's in the straight NRC category can use it, but if we have something that's a heavier use that's NRC in the special exceptions, we would come back to the district commissioner, staff comments and recommendation not otherwise in conflict. That being said, under 134-213-3, this is a straight NRC case. Alternatively, it can be an NRC zoned under 134-213-11 as a special use after scrutiny by the board. We believe it's a straight NRC use and the property should be zoned NRC with the stipulations we've just provided. And we spent a lot of time negotiating back and forth trying to get there. We almost got there with Commissioner Burrell and Canton Road neighbors, but didn't. That being said, unless you have any questions from me, I have achieved my time.
Thank you, sir.
And I think Carol Brown's online.
I believe we have Ms. Brown on the telephone.
We do have one virtual speaker,
Okay.
Carol Brown.
You all want me to stand down?
Okay.
No, you can, really.
Carol, it's your turn to speak.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Carol Brown with Canton Road Neighbors. I want to remind everyone that there's an ongoing effort to revitalize the 5-mile Canton Highway, which dates back to 2005. The planning for it was a collaborative year-long process, and I was one of the appointees to the Canton Road Steering Committee. Changes to the future land use map and design guidelines became instrumental in revitalization. Much progress has been made. I don't need to remind everyone that the zoning code isn't merely a suggestion any more than posted speed limits are just a suggestion. Subject property had been vacant and blighted for many years when Mr. Mitchell bought it in 2017. Initially, he didn't realize that it needed to rezone, and he wanted to have unrestricted use of it after applying a coat of paint. There was a petition signed by 120 community members asking that the property be renovated. The application was finally rezoned in March 20, after being continued for 6 months, and it took nearly 1 year for Mr. Mitchell to renovate the structure and remove the old signage. So the property was not usable until spring of 2019. Last night, I sent some Google Earth images to the commissioner, which showed that by October 2019, Mr. Mitchell was using the property for storage of RV or tour buses. Nearby neighbors could hear them idling at times. Mr. Mitchell had economic use of his property from October 2019 with a use that violated his zoning stipulations. I knew about the violations, and many nearby residents commented on the large vehicles, and yet it was not turned into code enforcement for 10 months until July of 2020. At this point, the approved Planning Commission motion, with revisions proposed by Commissioner Burrell, will give Mr. Mitchell's tenant everything he seeks to operate his business, and that doesn't seem to be enough. Mr. Mitchell questions why Canton Road neighbors should be involved. As a zoning representative for CRN, I was engaged to some extent with 4 cases that were approved on consent agenda this morning, one just right across the street from his property. There's a multi-million-dollar development under construction just up the road. My early involvement with the new storage facility and with racetrack project completed this year was substantial. Canton Road Neighbors supports quality development and good business. And finally, for the record, my property line is only 400 feet from Mr. Mitchell's property line. Deletion to NRC is the appropriate zoning. The additional stipulations are also appropriate and are a routine part of the zoning process in unincorporated Cobb County. We ask that you support the Planning Commission recommendation with the added revisions proposed by Commissioner Burrell. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown. Okay, Commissioner Burrell.
Thank you. Okay. Well, first of all, this was a blighted property, an old closed gas station that was on the redevelopment list. And I appreciate Mr. Mitchell purchasing it and trying to turn it into a valuable business here. Planning Commissioner Williams and Mr. Peterson and I did meet with with Mr. Bailey, who runs the tailgate, ultimate tailgating at this location. And I have to say that it is in very good shape, very clean. We met on site, and we also met here at the office to go over, some stipulations and conditions. And Mr. Bailey has been very cooperative and agreeable to most everything, and I think it wants to be a good neighbor and will be a good neighbor at this location. His business is very unique and really fascinating. If you have a need for renting an RV for a tailgate event. I went by there this morning on my way in, and everything was behind the fence, spotless. The parking lot was clear and cleaned, and I just want to commend him on running a nice facility here. I know that the RVs under NRC, it's my understanding, John, are legal, that if they are in a parking space, they are allowed under the NRC code, or acceptable uses or special use category in the front.
Commissioner Burrow, it would be my opinion that it would not be. The applicant is starting with CRC because that's the proper category for RV sales and
okay.
rental.
Well, we're making a special exception.
We're making a special stipulation to allow it in NRC with a bunch of conditions that help regulate how it looks.
Okay. And also, we have Canton Road guidelines that are guidelines and a recommendation, not necessarily mandatory, but, all the effort that's been in to trying to make Canton Road more appeasing and aesthetically appealing. I think it's best to keep all the vehicles, RVs and trailers and everything behind the fence. It does look much better. So here's, I'm ready to make a motion.
Please.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to delete Z60 to NRC with the following stipulations. Special exception use for this use only. Parking and landscape to be approved by a district commissioner. Limit uses permitted in NRC to parking and vehicles for this tenant, ultimate tailgating. Building on site to be limited to use by ultimate tailgating for an ancillary use for their RV rental and event business. No additional automobile uses. Use of property for sale of vehicles is prohibited. Any other use to be approved by the district commissioner with review by Canton Road neighbors. Parking of RVs to be behind the existing fence after hours. One may be kept in front of the fence for demonstration, pickup, and drop-off during hours of 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m., with the exception of unusual circumstances such as return of an RV after 8 p.m. It can be left out front till the next morning with notice to the district commissioner. No outside storage. Hours of operation Monday through Sunday, 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Access to property by RV shall be by Canton Highway and right-in, right-out only. Installation of ground-based monument sign per zoning requirements. And site plan dated August 6th, subject to the site plan submitted August 6th, and staff and planning commission comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
Do I have a second? We have a second. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, I guess the next one's OB 50, is that correct?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The first item for the OB agenda today is the business item number 50 of 2020, which is to consider a site plan and stipulation amendment for the EDS Preparatory Academy regarding rezoning application Z45 of 2005. The property is located at the southeast intersection of Austell Road and Anderson Mill Road in land lot 993 of the 19th District. By way of background, the subject property was rezoned to neighborhood retail commercial in 2005 for a retail shopping center. The applicant would like to revise the stipulation to allow his child care and preschool use on the property. The building would be 2 stories in height with play areas for toddlers and preschool children to the sides of the building. If approved, all previous conditions would remain in effect. And we would ask the Board of Commissioners to conduct a public hearing to consider the proposed site plan and stipulation amendment. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 50? Let the record show there's none. No one opposed?
We have 2 virtual in opposition.
And they both want to speak?
Yes.
Okay, and there are 2 virtual people here opposed who would also like to speak. So at this point, we would hand it over to the applicant for his presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody, and good morning, commissioners. My name is Chuck Owuzo. I'm the owner and the developer of this land property. I don't know if somebody can you help me with this? Thank you. That is the site plan I'd like to show us. This is a proposal for a child care and a preschool business at the intersection of Anderson Mill and Austell Road. And we have gone through the whole site plan review, and I have one stop from every department, but we have zoning that is left. And I was advised that I need to come for other business matters, even if NRC allows the use of a preschool in that facility. I'd like to point out that I've been in child care business since 2008, and I do understand the requirements and how the best way to manage it and make sure that the neighbors around are happy with the operation, and also making sure that all the concerns that anybody may have, especially those who are close to us, are properly taken care of, and to live within the community as one, doing everything in common. The business hours for this operation will be from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. These hours perfectly works with workers, with parents. That is the time they leave for work, and about the time they are coming back, we are also leaving. So there will be no much interruption in terms of noise or in terms of anything that may interrupt their daily lives or activities. This business also is planned to have security installed both inside and outside of the building to make sure that we operate in a safe environment, especially for the children that are kept in our custody. We also guarantee that we meet all state requirements. In addition to all these, we are mandated to keep maintaining all state requirements that may affect the operations and the safety of children in our custody. This property was purchased in 2014, and as at this time, in 2014, the neighborhood was about 36 houses were built. And after the property was purchased, about 46 more were built. So most of the neighbors actually came to join me in that environment. And I expect that all of us will have good and harmonious relationship. Some of them may have had some concerns, and I've met with the homeowners associations twice, and the most recent was last week, and they had some questions that we were able to address. This property also has, as you can see from the drive arrow there, we have two access easements from Anderson Mill and also from Orange Grove. So the design allows us to have vehicles that can go on both directions. That way we're able to reduce traffic and to minimize all traffic overflows. And the Cobb County DOT also reviewed the plans, and the whole traffic flow was acceptable to them, and they approved us for one stop. In addition to that, I also consider this location as very good for this business. Before I considered childcare for this location, I looked at other business that could be good in that area. And one of them I looked at was to have a fast food restaurant, a 24-hour fast food restaurant. But after due consideration, I felt that a childcare would be more community friendly instead of having a 24-hour business over there with the whole traffic and other issues that may come with late hours. I'm here to answer and to answer any question that my neighbors may have, and also to advise that the honorable commissioners approve this application for us to start construction. This is a hold on us right now. All other departments have approved us for one stop. Once this is done, once we have this approved, I can go for one stop and start construction immediately. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, those in opposition now?
Our first virtual opposition is Gwen Harrison.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, board members, and thank you for the time. I am in Orange Grove Place, which is a very narrow road, which will be adjacent to the prospective builder playground area. And my one question is what type of barrier that he will be putting up to prevent objects from coming over into my driveway, as well as objects that may be thrown over by children playing. What does he have in place to prevent that?
Am I allowed to answer?
I think I'll let the commissioner address that issue when it comes time for her comments, okay?
Okay.
Ms. Harris, we're going to let Commissioner Cupid address those concerns in her comments, all right, ma'am?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Our next virtual speaker is Terrell Washington.
Okay?
Mr. Washington, it's your turn to speak.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I'm a member of the HOA board. We recently spoke with Mr. Chuck. We understand this business is coming, but we have a few concerns. We are a small community. We only have 2 entrances in and out, and these roads are very small. There is an ordinance, section 134-265, and it states that no non-residential access shall cross residentially zoned property. On the map of the diagram that shows our property and the layout of the future property that's being built, it shows coming in initially from Anderson Mill Road and making it right after coming into the property to be able to then go into Mr. Chuck's property. This is a concern of the neighbors. The road, our entryway is already short compared to the distance to the light approaching Austell Road. We understand this is going to provide a lot of additional traffic. We're not sure exactly if this ordinance is applicable to this. In addition, we're a townhome community, and fencing, privacy, noise issues, and safety is a huge concern of ours, as the business is going to be adjacent directly behind or in front of 2 of our townhomes. Is going to be connected to, and the height level, we believe that its minimum is 6 feet. However, that seems very short to us. We're not exactly sure in terms of the privacy with these being kids, us being an adult community. I'm the only homeowner currently who has a kid that kind of roams around. There's not a lot of children. I believe there's some new infants. So we're a growing community, but it's a lot of adults. We also walk the neighborhood all throughout the day. We've also learned that we're a neighborhood that works from home even before the pandemic. And we even work from home even more. I work for the federal government. I work from home 24/7 now, full time until I change my mind. This is a huge concern in terms of noise, especially for the homes nearby. There's about 10 homes in total that kind of wraps the backside of the property, and a lot of those neighbors are always home. So the kids, the visibility, also the safety for those kids is a huge concern of ours. And also, we also hide and put away our trash bins. So we understand that this business will have some type of trash. We're hopeful that it'll have some type of covering to be able to prevent unwarranted animals. I have deer, foxes. We have roaming cats. We're an open community currently. So any additional issues could be alarming for us at the time. And so I just wanted to share a lot of our concerns. Again, our privacy, as well as noise, as well as knowing who would be responsible for trucks that's going into the facility for Mr. Chuck, who could be responsible for the damage that could occur with the roads. Do we split that cost, even though that's not necessarily for us? So again, we sent some letters out recently, and we just wanted to voice our concern. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Washington. Okay, so John, what's the staff's recommendation?
Mr. Chairman and Board, the staff would recommend the board approve the request subject to the site plan that has been presented to the board this morning. subject to a 10-foot landscape buffer along the east and south property line, and all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cupid.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank the applicant and the residents. We met regarding the potential future of this site. It may have, prior to the pandemic, perceived some time last year. And there was also a recent meeting with the residents and Mr. Gude. Am I pronouncing your last name?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, regarding this. There has been a lot of discussion about how this could move forward or whether it could move forward. And so a lot of this has been education on the fact that this was zoned for both retail and townhomes simultaneously in 2005. And between the time of us receiving a lot of correspondence regarding this with the neighbors to today, we've uncovered the actual plat of this being zoned for both retail and townhomes, in addition to the easement agreement which permits this development from accessing the private roads that are within the condominium community. When this was originally zoned, it was zoned in contemplation of retail with NRC. The use that's put forward today does lessen the intensity of there being full retail development of that site, and that's something when we did meet as a community that we did discuss. There are concerns still that residents have about the impact of this, and I know, Chuck, you have developed daycares throughout the district, all of them which have actually helped to improve the areas of everywhere where you've developed. I'm trusting in that same spirit that you'll continue to work with this community in being a good neighbor, but still I wanted to address some of the concerns that were shared. The first caller and the second caller had concerns with respect to fencing. And because it's a daycare use, the state does require fencing, particularly in that playground area, which is adjacent to the townhome community. And the fence height, I believe, has to be 6 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, 6 feet at a minimum.
And you had a site plan. Can we get a look at the site plan that was shared? Okay. With the fence that will be there, are you, or Chuck, we don't always go back and forth with applicants, but while you're up there, I'm going to ask you some questions for clarification. Are you willing to add a landscape buffer inside the fence where the preschool and toddler areas are? I know that there's a stipulation already that you have to add a 10-foot buffer to the east side, but particularly the south area, you're able to add additional landscaping there to help mitigate sight and sound?
Yeah, yes, we can. That would be on this. That would be on this side? Oh, sorry, yeah. That would be on this side.
That's already stipulated for there to be on the east, but south, are you able, south, do you see where I'm referring?
On the south side, we can, but when you look at that, there are no houses there.
There are some across the street, but I know there aren't any on that side of Orange Hill Place. So the residents would be looking directly into the play area.
What we were planning was to add some trees, a bunch of trees on this side,
Oh, okay.
a bunch of trees on this side. And actually it could be inside, but it may not be. We are actually required to have a shaded areas, but we're not looking at it like a landscape buffer, but we have some trees, like maybe like 2 to 5 feet, with a lot of tree that will provide shade to children who are playing the playground.
Okay, and so you can add that to the south of the property as well?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And then with respect to traffic, part of the stipulations require that you're going to submit an internal traffic plan as part of the DOT approval process.
Yes, we did that already, and DOT already signed off for One Stop. They had questions on how we're going to manage the traffic, and they were satisfied, and they signed off on it, ready for One Stop.
Oh, okay. I perceive that was still an outstanding stipulation.
Yeah, one of the things they said was if there is, especially on Austere Road, by that traffic light, there is a lot of traffic that we may consider having an on-site person to direct the traffic in and out.
Okay, this is internal into the daycare, that you have to have a circulation plan of how parents will be dropping off and picking up their children. So you're saying that's already been submitted?
We didn't submit circulation for parents.
Okay.
Yeah, but what happens with parents? Parents park and drop off, and that is it, they leave.
Okay.
And during, when they are picking up, we get the children ready for them to pick up. As they are parking, the staff will be walking their children into the car, and they are driving off. Except they have a need to, something to discuss with management. That is only the only time we allow them to come in during peak hours.
Okay. Just note that as a part of this other business item, staff is recommending that you do submit that plan to them as part of the approval process of this other business item.
Okay. Is
So
that going to be to DOT or?
To DOT, yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. I also looked over the easement agreement, and you do have access for the roadway. It doesn't mention anything about maintenance, so would just ask that you work with community members to come up with a plan for how that roadway will be maintained. Yep, I know you both will have traffic.
Yes, I'm ready to do that.
Okay.
Especially when it affects the areas we are using. You know, people coming in from Austere Road or from Anderson Mill Road, because we are going to make sure, I'm going to make sure that our traffic only comes in from Austere Road right into the property, or coming in from Anderson Mill. They don't use the drive, they don't go into the neighborhood. So anything that goes wrong, wherever we are using, we'll be ready to work with the community to find a solution.
Yes, and that should be submitted as part of your traffic plan, and that does help address some concerns of residents had of people making a right out of that entrance along Anderson Mill.
All right, we're ready to do that, ma'am.
Okay. And just a point of clarification, is this a one-story or two-story daycare? Because on one document, I see two-story, and then on this plan, I see one-story.
Yeah, initially we thought about two-story, but now it's one-story.
It's one-story, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so with that, I move that we approve other business item 50. Do I have that? Yes, subject to staff comments and recommendations. Also including that the applicant is to provide a final architecture and landscaping plan to the district commissioner for approval, with landscaping to the south to help mitigate sight and sound. Also, landscape plan is to include the fencing that will be installed.
Thank you.
Yep, also add that the applicant work with Orange Grove Homeowners Association on maintenance of the easement. Yeah.
All right,
Those are my additional stipulations.
Okay.
And again, including all other staff comments and recommendations and conditions of the prior zoning not otherwise in conflict.
Can I add, please?
We have a motion, and we have a second. I'll second it. So Commissioner Ott?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. The first one, you have 31 parking spaces. How many students or how many children are going to be at the daycare?
The building is about 10,500 square feet. About 25% of that would be like, almost like a common area. So we are looking at license capacity. Looking at license capacity, maybe in the, maybe 150, between 150 and 180. But usually when you have a license capacity, you can never operate at that full capacity. We operate maybe about 60 to 80% full capacity.
Okay, so my concern, Commissioner Cupid, is, and how, with, say, the 60, how many staff personnel do you have to have there?
I usually have about 8 to 10 staff.
Okay, so my concern is there's 31 parking spaces, 60 students, okay? You have, you're going to have, well, 23 parking spaces available for pickup and drop off. My concern is that the carpool line is going to come and circle away around Orange Grove Place, because obviously they can't stay on Austell Road or Anderson Mill. And I just think that I'm not sure how a flow pattern is going to work with that many students and that few parking spaces. I think that even though in the original stipulation letter, it was very clear that there's shared access, but I don't think it contemplated a backup of those cars, because that many students, there's going to be a whole lot more cars than there are parking spaces. So that's the first concern. And then I have a question for the fire marshal. I think she's back there.
Mary Lanning, Cobb County Fire Marshal's Office.
It was my understanding, and I could be wrong, but don't you have to, in a daycare or preschool, have sprinklers?
No,
No,
not necessarily.
you do not? Okay, all right. That's all I had. So I'm just concerned, Commissioner Cupid, I think that if you're going to approve this, you need to limit the number of students, at least for the first year, to, we've done that in some of the church schools that we've done. We've limited the attendance because it could have a severe impact on this townhome community. And I think that the capacity that Chuck would be able to have legally, you know, he's got all the space and everything he needs, but the concern is he may not have the flow space. And I think if you let him go to the full capacity, we're going to create a potential huge problem for those neighbors.
I mean, right now, the capacity issue is not, we don't have a determined number of what actual capacity is. I know when I've also zoned daycares, a lot of that was driven by the state to determine what that capacity is. And I would just ask that we, that DOT make note of what the transportation impacts is to the surrounding community, as you have been during this process, and help Mr. Gude in coming up with that number, or help him with the with what a traffic plan could be, because you can be more creative than just looking at parking spots. There's also instances where schools have come up with staggered drop-off and pickup times as well for their students. So again, I just ask that DOT continue to be sensitive to the traffic impacts of that community that that was zoned with this development.
Wouldn't that flow study have to, wouldn't that drive how many people they could have with this?
That's what, that's what Commissioner Ott is sharing. I don't know what the capacity is. I know that when we've had this, when I've had other daycares in the district, I was surprised at just how limiting the state recommendations were on that capacity. you have multiple daycares, so I'm sure you know more than any of us and how you have operated those.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I have 3 other daycare centers. One of the centers is licensed for 194. The state
Sorry,
requirement is
I
that
didn't-
you have, not just the state, even Cobb County, for every childcare center is 20 parking spaces plus 1 handicap, no matter how big it is. But what happens is, even as small as it may seem, parents don't back up, and they don't arrive at the same time. Some people leave work at 12, some leave at 1. So you walk into a typical childcare facility as little as 21 parking spaces, you don't see traffic backing up. They're not like high school or elementary school where everybody has to come within a time range. It doesn't happen like that in childcare center. We've never experienced that. And this one has about 32 parking spaces.
Okay.
I have, one of my centers is 174, another is 188, and another one is 198. These 3 centers, this one has the highest parking spaces.
Out of
And
all.
each of those small parking spaces, we never had any issues with parking and traffic flows.
Okay.
Commissioner Gamble?
Commissioner Cupid, would you consider a stipulation stating there's no circulation or queuing along Orange Grove Place?
Sure, we can add that stipulation.
Yes, I agree to that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So
And
we'll add
then
that.
also, just in regards to the entrance, because I know we're having this in my district, where construction vehicles are coming in and damaging the road, and then the road's needing to be redone. Could we have DOT document that prior to construction to help mitigate future repairs?
Yeah, I'll let DOT respond to that.
Yes, ma'am. We could go out, we could take pictures and evaluate how the condition. It's a private road. If the association would be okay with that, we wouldn't mind doing that. Just taking pictures along the corridors and just providing a synopsis of what they are, what they're rated and that, so they'll have it for that final build out.
Okay. It is a private road, so but if, you know.
Well, and that's where my concern is, as I understand it is a private road that is to be maintained by the owners of the townhome. Should they bear the burden for this property owner to potentially damage it due to the heavy construction, yet then they're liable to fix and maintain it? Because I'm assuming this property owner does not pay anything to help maintain this private road, even though they have an
yes,
easement.
by nature of easements, it is, I mean, he's the benefactor of the easement, and it is not his responsibility to. However, he has offered to work with the residents, and again, he's been a part of this community for a long period of time, and, you know, he's met with the community even outside of me for facilitating that to try to address their concerns. So I have confidence that that will be done. Again, if Erica's willing to agree to have her team do that, I don't anticipate that the applicant would, and it would certainly benefit the residents out there for DOT to provide some type of pre- and post-evaluation of the road conditions subject to the build.
Thank you, ma'am. I will also suggest, if we are going to do a post or during construction potential damages, that we need to have like a benchmark. Look at what it is before the construction.
Exactly.
So that if there is anything that goes wrong during construction, I'll be ready to take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of, yes, this gets into a level of subjectivity that I don't necessarily feel most comfortable with, even though I know it can be assessed. It's not requiring anything because, you know, you just don't know what all contributes to the level of damage. But the idea of looking at it prior to at least can give some sense of what the ongoing activity has been with just the residents.
Commissioner Burrow?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest where you have the stipulation of maintenance of the easement, working with the neighbors on maintenance of the easement, to include the private road.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the easement, yes, on the private road. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
Yes, well, let me sit here and try to figure out how to add a stipulation. So there was a stipulation added to, for vehicles not to queue on Orange Grove Place that are associated with the daycare, and also for DOT to conduct a pre- and post-evaluation of the private roads that lead to the daycare, subject to the development of the property. Those are my two added stipulations, yeah.
And seeing no other discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. I see 4 votes for, all opposed. We have 1. So Commissioner Watson, opposition passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, OB 61 now, I believe.
Mr. Chairman and Board, the last item on today's agenda is other business item number 61, which is to consider a stipulation amendment for Ferdinand Auto LLC regarding rezoning application Z120 of 1997. The property is located on the south side of Hawkinstow Road, west of Canton Road, in land lot 277 of the 16th District. By way of background, the subject property was rezoned to neighborhood retail commercial with conditions that limited the use of the property for auto repair only. The applicant would like to operate an auto broker office on the property. There would not be any cars kept on the property. The auto repair business would remain where it is. If approved, all previous conditions would remain in effect. The applicant is present. Earlier, we had one person here in person opposed. There was no one virtually opposed. Would the applicant and the opposition please come forward to be sworn in?
What's that? I'm opposed.
Good morning, everybody. Just like to say this is my first time doing anything like this, so I'm a little nervous. All I do is want to serve the county in an auto mechanic, kind of aspect, and that's my main thing is fixing cars and serving the community. I took over a business that's been around for 30 years. It was called Bud Leonard, and he was a godly man that was a man of integrity, and he chose to sell it to me, which I'm honored and I'm blessed to be able to do. So the only thing I'm looking to do at this point is, sometimes I get a car from a customer or something and it's not running. I'm not looking to flip cars. I don't want to sell a lot of cars, but I understand there's, laws on the books that say I'm not allowed to sell more than like 4 cars a year, and that's illegal if I do that. And sometimes I do get some cars that are broken down and I fix them up and sell them. So in order to do that, you have to be licensed by the state, and I needed just a broker office to do that. So my business won't change. When I took over back in November, I cleaned up the place. I don't have a bunch of junk cars all over the place. I just want to serve the community. That's all. And so I spoke to the gentleman, and I've had a couple people call me and say, "What are you doing? Are you expanding, the shop and making it bigger?" And I'm like, no. I'm not doing anything. Nothing's going to change. I'm not going to have cars for sale, signs, all that stuff. I'm not into that. Any car I sell is going to be like word of mouth, maybe. So that's all.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry for my casual appearance. I didn't know I was going to be doing this, but I received this notification in the mail, and it was kind of cryptic to me. I've lived in Lookout Point for 30 years. When I moved out there, it was a very rural, quiet subdivision. At the time, as I explained to the gentleman earlier, there was a closet hut owned there by a little old lady, and she used it to store for a cable company their materials. And I was told that when she dies or passes, it'll be cleared and it'll go, back to compatible to a residential community, which is within 90 feet of the entrance to the subdivision I live in. Subsequently, in I think the mid-90s, I saw the closet hut torn down. The next thing I know, they're erecting this garage structure, and then they put privacy or security fencing with barbed wire up, and it's an eyesore to the community. Over the years, the shop has accumulated cars, numerous cars that are abandoned there for indeterminate amount of time. Subsequently, across the street, a building was erected that was originally going to be used for a chapel wedding ceremony. That went through years of controversy with the county. That evolved finally, after I think 10 years, into a fitness facility. Subsequently, they built and got permitted to build Little League baseball fields, and they hold tournaments there that has evolved into traffic that comes into the subdivision we live in for overflow parking. So my contention is, I don't believe or understand why you have a garage facility to begin with, or why it was permitted and coded to be adjacent to a large residential community. And, like I said, when I got this notice, it was kind of cryptic. And if I'd known I could have done it remotely, I would have, but it didn't say it in here. But at the end of the day, I'm concerned about degradation of the residential community I've lived in over the years, whether it be conversion of a property into a Section 8 house that created all kinds of concerns of activity that resulted in me moving back to my home from out of state. But that's essentially my position, is that I'm concerned about a repair shop with barbed wire fencing, abandoned cars, coming into a residential community is an eyesore. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, sir. John, what's the staff's recommendation?
Mr. Chairman and Board, the staff recommend the Board approve the request, subject to allowing the additional use for an auto broker office, no car inventory kept on site, no cars for sale on site. Cobb DOT comments, and all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect.
Okay. Commissioner Burrow.
This was zoned back in 1997, and I'm not sure if that was prior to the subdivision, Lookout subdivision, where the gentleman who just spoke.
Lookout Point was built in 1977. I moved in there in 1988.
Okay, sir. Thank you. You didn't state your name and address for the record, so I didn't know.
sorry. You want me to go back?
I didn't know.
Okay.
So the subdivision obviously was already there when this was zoned in 97 for auto repair use. And it's my understanding that the new owner, Ferdinand Auto LLC, will be operating in the office there, not any change that I'm aware of to the building or, and no signage for sale of cars. So the only stipulation I think that he's requesting is number 4 from 1997 Z120 is, number 4 states, "This use only. In addition, if property ceases to be used for auto repair for a period of 12 months, property is redesignated to LRO zoning." So what he's asking for is to allow auto broker office, no cars for sale on display. And I would add that, that this would be for auto broker office and include no cars for sale on display. And also any other use would come back to the board as other business for approval. Or if it's vacant for 12 months, which our code requires, it has to be rezoned.
My other concern is that I think that you got to have a stipulation about how many cars you can have of this nature. Because then when the word gets out that you can bring your car to this gentleman here and he'll fix them and resell them, next thing you know, you have cars piled up in his parking lot. I have no problem with extending, a little bit. He's trying to meet the law. I appreciate that deeply. But on the other hand, we've all known that, and sometimes there's just, there's parts of this county where there's these cars just parked all over the lot there, and the intention is to sell them, but it is backed up against the residential neighborhood, and I think that they're entitled to have some degree of protection to make sure this isn't a dumping off spot for cars to be sold.
How many marked spaces are there?
It's already stipulated in the original zoning. I think it's like 16.
That's correct. There's 16 in the original conditions, Mr. Chairman.
That's fine.
It's what?
There's 16 allowed on site per the original conditions.
16 cars allowed on site?
Correct.
Okay.
So how many
And that
people,
would still apply.
how many people work in your business?
You need to call him up to the,
You can come back. Yeah, come back up
can
here,
you come
sir.
back up to the podium, sir, please?
Yeah, so I mean, what I don't want to have is 17 cars parked there and you're not doing any car repairs.
No. It's actually me and another gentleman
Right.
that are mechanics. And
Right.
my wife comes in to do a little office work
So
sometimes.
you and I both know you can't fix 17 cars with 2 people.
Oh, we're not doing that many cars now. Not like.
Are they all in spaces or on gravel or
Yeah,
pavement?
everything is all marked and all
And you
that.
can't have any on grass?
No, there's no grass anyway. It's all pavement,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, well, it's your call, Commissioner.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Look, I appreciate what you're trying to meet the law, and I really appreciate
I
that.
want to keep it clean too, you know?
Yeah, okay, all right.
Okay, so, yeah, it does say no more than 16 cars on site at any given time. So all the previous stipulations would still remain in effect. It's just number 4 that we're changing.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? So it passes 4 to 1, the Commissioner not in opposition. With that, I believe we're done, correct? We're adjourned.